The topic that we decided to research was STEM integration by Jess, Patty, Courtney, and Steph. On the next slide, our process for obtaining articles. We use Zotero, tracing citations both forward and backwards, the Millersville Library with EBSCOhost, and then Google Scholar. On the next slide, the history and importance of STEM. The letters in STEM stand for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It seems like a more modern idea, but the first school focusing on it was actually developed in 1904. It transcends into other career fields because it gives opportunities for problem-solving skills and promoting collaboration, inquiry, and creativity, as well as critical thinking. This is also important for just their daily lives. The United States used to be a leader in engineering and technology fields, but now only about 4% of college graduates from the United States are receiving their degrees in engineering and technology. That has had an effect on how employees are able to hire their different, employers are able to hire their different employees. So now they are going to other countries that have a higher percentage of graduates in those fields. The idea behind STEM integration is that by introducing the students to STEM concepts at an earlier age, it'll increase the amount of college graduates seeking employment in the fields in the future, which will help us get back up to the top in those fields. On the next slide.
Some questions that we found the literature seemed to be answering were, how does STEM integration affect student achievement? And more specifically, does it positively impact it, or does it affect it at all? Another question we found was, what are teachers' perceptions of STEM integration? We are looking more into, what do the teachers think of it? How are they feeling about taking this and doing it inside of their classrooms? And the last question we were looking into was, how does professional development affect the implementation of STEM in a classroom? The literature specifically was looking at it. Does it help with the integration of it in the classrooms? And what type is most effective? Next slide. This then brought us to our themes. We saw teacher perception, so what the teachers are thinking, how they're feeling about it. Mainly, how are they feeling about doing this in their classrooms? Professional development, what type of professional development is already out there? What do we need to make better professional development when it comes to STEM? And student achievement, how is this affecting students in their learning, and is it helpful? Next slide. Our first theme that we saw was teacher perceptions. Overall, we found that teachers feel it is very important to integrate the different parts of STEM into their classrooms. They believe that this will be helping the students with their futures and with their careers, making more students focus on the sciences so that when they do go to college, they are able to get those jobs that were talked about earlier that are less in the United States. They do, however, feel underprepared to integrate STEM into their classrooms. They feel they do not have the right materials and they do not have the right professional development so far to be able to put all the parts of STEM together. They do believe that there are parts of STEM that are easier to put together. For example, science and math. They have a harder time of thinking of how to integrate engineering into their classroom. They do, in the end, believe that if they had more professional development and they had more support from their administration with different professional developments and things like that, they would feel more comfortable with integrating STEM into their classrooms because they do believe that it is important. Next slide.
Our next theme was professional development. The main findings behind this theme was that a high quality and flexible professional development increases the teacher's pedagogical skills and knowledge in STEM integration. A purposeful PD is something that is fluid and flexible. It engages all teachers because it is designed to meet their specific needs. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach to professional development. Professional development is more beneficial when it's substantial in length, so not just doing a 1-day or 2-day professional development, but a lengthy time, usually over the summer, that also corresponds into the school year to help support teachers more thoroughly. It allows for opportunity to practice skills and lessons during that professional development time, and it also allows for each teacher to reflect on what they've learned and also to reflect on their individual practice skills. To the next slide.
The final theme that we had looked at was student achievement, and there were mixed results in the articles that were reviewed for this literature review. Some of the studies found that one-to-one technology could possibly be a factor in student academic achievement, and there were other studies that discovered that STEM integration really only affected specific groups of students, for example, like special education students or lower performing students. There was one study that actually focused on STEM academies versus non-STEM schools, and it was interesting because they found no difference in academic achievement. One thing that I took into consideration is that there was numerous threats to the internal and external validity of these studies, so you have to take that into consideration when looking at the results. There were other studies that did reveal significant gains in students' achievement, really just in the areas of science, either in process skills, science concepts, and science content knowledge when there was an integration of STEM initiatives in the classroom. The studies did find a difference in control and treatment groups depending on the initiative. There was a meta-analysis of 28 studies, and they determined that STEM integration does provide a rich learning context that really can improve student learning and interest, and that when the students have an early exposure to STEM, it ends up yielding higher achievement for those students. So the next slide, we look at trends. So some of the trends that we noticed in participant sampling, convenience was the most common. We also saw purposeful. There were some studies where there was actually a combination of both, meaning they would use the convenience of a school, but then purposeful in that they focused on a specific grade. When looking at our data collection and also our types of research, there was definitely a mix of quantitative and qualitative. So looking at the data collection, there were some studies that we saw that used a lot of surveys. There were also a lot that used common assessments, such as state assessments or topic assessments for the curriculum that they were using. There were also studies that used observations and then anecdotal notes from those observations. And there were other ones where they observed lessons and used rating tools. In the different types of research, we saw some quasi-experimental, casual comparative, comparative, non-experimental, and pre-experimental also. Next slide.
Overall, the strength of this research we felt was that all of the studies we looked at agreed that a purposeful professional development increased teachers' ability to successfully integrate STEM into the classroom, which could then have a positive effect on student achievement. We felt that most of the articles in the studies we found agreed on that point. One of the main weaknesses of the research is that overall we felt our topic is under-researched. We believe that either some of the themes are a little inconsistent on agreeing on an idea, or that there are still many questions that have gone unanswered. Something else we thought was a weakness was that most of the samplings were convenience samplings. We think that this is practically important to us because each member of our group is pursuing a master's degree in curriculum assessment and teaching with a STEM endorsement. This is something we're all highly interested in and involved in STEM in our own classrooms in some sort of way, whether it be through the technology or through the math aspect of it. We're all interested on how we can integrate this into our own classrooms. We also see that there is a push for STEM or an increasing relevance in schools but also in society. More and more STEM careers are not only becoming available, but are also needed in society today. So that was our research paper. Thank you.